Hello everyone, this is the ASMR Review Show, and for this episode I'm going to be talking about The Police, the band, not the agency of the law. So, for this video I have each of the albums by The Police on vinyl, and I'll just sort of go and talk a little bit about each one, maybe sort of go through some of the track listings and talk about my favorite songs. Hopefully that's something you guys find interesting or relaxing, or maybe a little bit of both. So, this is the first album by The Police, Ricochet de Blanc. This was released in 1978, if I recall correctly. I don't have a computer open nearby to fact check, so please feel free to tell me how wrong my knowledge of bands are. But this is widely considered to be one of the first new wave albums, because before this album was released, The Police was made up of Sting and Stuart Copeland, and they had a guitar player named Henry Padovani, and they released a very punk rock sounding song called Fallout, but it wasn't really the sound they wanted to go for. So Andy Summers joined the band as the new guitar player, and their sound was almost a fine line between corporate rock of the time and punk music, and this is what was referred to eventually as new wave. So you'll see on the back there the track listing right there. And in my opinion, this is a phenomenal debut album. So, side 1 contains the songs Next to You, So Lonely, Roxanne, Hole in My Life, and Peanuts. And side 2 is Can't Stand Losing You, Truth Hits Everybody, Born in the 50s, Be My Girl, Sally, and Masoko Tanga. I'm not sure. Yeah, a lot of my favorite songs by The Police are on this album. Next to You is a great opener. It's very punk rock influenced. Some great guitar work and great drumming. So Lonely is one of my favorite songs on the album, maybe 2, I think. But that song really builds with a lot of energy. There's a great drive to it, and I think that song is a really definitive reason why I love The Police. Roxanne, most of you have probably heard, as it is a very popular song. I think that sort of exemplifies the lyrical content and idea of The Police, because the song is about a prostitute, which is what the line, "You don't have to put on the red dress or the red light," being referenced to. Despite the, slightly more mature themes, it's a very fun to listen to song. Can't Stand Losing You, on side 2, is another darker song because it's about suicide after a breakup. But again, it's just so pop. It's just so fun to listen to. I'm going to just show you guys the actual vinyl now. There you go. Yeah, it's a vinyl. None of these are special with, red or green or colored stripes. So, That's always the hard part, getting it back in the older packaging. Because this is an original pressing from '78. There we go. So, that is Outlandish Amor, a fantastic debut record, and I highly recommend that you listen to the whole album if you have not listened to it already. So, set that aside, moving on. Next album we have is Ricochet de Blanc. So, this was released a year later in 1979, and I think it sort of continued the sound that the Police had. It's a good expansion and involvement working towards that idea that they were generally known for. So, the songs on this album are on side 1 we have Message in a Bottle, Ricochet de Blanc, It's Alright for You, Bring on the Night, and Death Wish. And then on side 2 we have Walking on the Moon, On Any Other Day, The Bed is Too Big Without You, Contact, Does Everyone Stare, and No Time This Time. So, I hope for the few people that are watching this video that you know the song Message in a Bottle, because that is one of their other biggest hits, and it is fantastic. The other two big songs on here are Bring on the Night and Walking on the Moon, both of which are also fantastic. Interesting with Walking on the Moon, as you may have noticed, I'm a fan of Rush, and I feel listening to this album that I can sort of hear a lot of sounds that could be inspiring to Rush. For those of you who know, for those of you who know the Rush song "Digital Man," I personally find that it sounds very similar to Walking on the Moon, and that was released later because that was in 1982. But I wouldn't call it a rip-off, just more influence, because I do know that Alex Lifeson, the guitar player for Rush, said that Andy Summers was a big inspiration on him. And I'll just show you the other side there. I think this is a very funny way to identify the band members by the back of their hair, when they all pretty much look the same anyways. And we'll just take this one out right now. This one has a little bit more of a fancier design to it. Nice little picture there. And I guess we'll take a look at the vinyl. Why not? And there you have it. So, it's hard for me to say what my least favorite album by the Police is, because each one has about 4 songs that I love, and then 1 or 2 that I'm not too crazy about. The only thing I can say for Ricochet de Blanc is that it is definitely the Police album I listen to the least, and that is not necessarily by voluntary choice. It's more due to the fact that if I listen to the Police, I listen to another album first. I don't avoid this one, I just don't listen to it as much. But I do know people who say that this is their favorite. So don't take that as a negative criticism of that. You should listen to this one as well. In fact, you should listen to every album by the Police, because they are a fantastic band. Might be a little hard to see, but I do have a passion. Senora Mondada. I think it was funny that the Police had 2 albums with non-English titles, and then they just decided to go with complete gibberish for this one. But it's a nice title, rolls off the tongue. Senora Mondada. Senora Mondada. So, it's a little difficult to read these track names, as you'll see in a minute, because the title is written large in Spanish. I believe that is Spanish. And in English in small letters. So, on this album, on side 1, we have Don't Stand So Close to Me, Driven to Tears, When the World is Running Down, You Make the Best of What's Still Around, Canary in a Coal Mine, Voices Inside My Head, and Bombs Away. And on side 2 we have Da-do-do-do, Da-da-da-da, Behind My Camel, Man in a Suitcase, Shadows in the Rain, and The Other Way of Stopping. I'll just let you look at the track listing here. Might be a little hard to read, but you could always pause the video if you truly wanted to, or look it up on Wikipedia. It's a very credible source. So, this might be my favorite album by the Police. There is one more, though, we'll get to eventually, that might be my favorite, because I've been listening to that one more. But as for this album, this does have 2 of my absolute favorite songs by the Police. Don't Stand So Close to Me, and Da-do-do-do, Da-da-da-da. That second one, it is impossible for me to say the title without thinking of it, because it is just a really great, catchy song. And Sting wrote it as almost a parody of songs with gibberish titles, because it was about how we sort of crave those simple songs. We like things being nice, straightforward, and I think that kind of relates to the way some people want relationships to be. And I found that very meaningful. I like the song, so that's what matters to me. And Don't Stand So Close to Me is a great song about a teacher who falls in love with a student that has a crush on him. Now, Sting was a teacher before he was in the band, but apparently it has nothing to do with his life. I think the reason why I like this album the most is because this was the time when the Police started incorporating synthesizers a bit more into their music, because this album came out in 1980. And that was when I think the new wave phase was really beginning to take off into the electropop version that it became. So certain songs have a bit more synth on them, and it was before their last 2 albums, which went very heavy on the synth. I said Sith. Fun fact about me, I like Star Wars a lot. What is a Freudian slip if you accidentally talk about Star Wars? Is it a Jedi slip? I'll have to think about that one. Where was I? Synths, as in synthesizers. With this album being in the middle, it's a good balance, and I think this represents their sound very well in that way. It's not too new, but it's not too old. We'll open this one up because this one has a very pretty inner sleeve. There's a lot of fancy pictures of the band there. Oh, sorry about that. I have very shaky hands, and being on camera does not help. And Now, ironically, just like Ricochet de Blanc, I might be in the vocal minority that love this album, because I believe that on the Rolling Stone magazine's 500 Greatest Albums of All Time list, this is the only album that is not on there by the Police. All of the other 4 albums are on there. But what does a big famous rock and roll magazine that's been doing the business for years know about music? These outer sleeves are always hard to get on, but they help protect records, so I guess it's worth it. Set that over there for now. Moving on. Album number 4. This might be my new favorite album by the Police. Ghost in the Machine. For me, side 1 of this album is absolutely perfect. So, the track listing is as follows. Side 1 contains Spirits in the Material World, Every Little Thing She Does Is Magic, Invisible Sun, Hungry for You, and Demolition Man. And side 2 contains Too Much Information, Rehumanize Yourself, One World, Not 3, Omega Man, Secret Journey, and Darkness. So, this is a really good album. It's fantastic. As I mentioned before, I find the first half to be absolutely perfect. Spirits in the Material World really sets the stage for the album because the reggae-inspired riff that would normally be played by the guitar is now played by a keyboard lead. And Every Little Thing She Does Is Magic is absolutely fantastic. That song is like magic. Has a great intro to it with a piano lead, builds into a fantastic climax. It's great. I can't say more than that. Just you have to listen to it. Invisible Sun is not necessarily darker lyrically for the Police, because as I previously mentioned, they do have darker songs, but musically it is. It's got a very sort of pulsing synth tone, and I believe it is about the conflict in Ireland. But I may be confounding that memory because I did see a video of where they played that song with Bono from U2, and then it made me think of the U2 song Sunday Bloody Sunday. Hungry for You, the lyrics are mostly in French, but it has a really great grooving riff, which is similar to the next song, Demolition Man. And Demolition Man is actually one of the first songs I heard by the Police. And that song is just all kinds of groove and awesome. The entire second half of the song is built on one riff jamming with some saxophone lines, and that's fun. If this wasn't meant to be for relaxation, I would be dancing around the room listening to that song, just thinking of it. Now, side 2, I wouldn't say there are any big hit songs as much as side 1, but they're still all good, and I think some of them are underrated, like Omega Man and Secret Journey. So, I always found this cover very interesting because for the longest time I didn't know what it meant. But what this is meant to be is the band, because each digital symbol is meant to be a face with the eyes, nose, and mouth of the band members. And in the middle, this is meant to be Sting, because he has the spiky hair. And I believe then this one is meant to be Andy Summers because of his hair. But honestly, until I saw older photos of them, I confused the two a lot. So, but it is meant to be the band. There's not much for liner notes on the inside of this album, but there's some cool machinery and a few photos of the band. As you can see here. I guess this was when they were in their serious, important musician phase, and liner notes and photos of the band that were obvious were, not serious enough for their music and their image. But who knows? I always like to joke about that. Rock star persona. So, there you have it. Yes. If there is one piece of music that I've listened to the most by the Police, it is side one of Ghost in the Machine. Put that away for now. So, because of that, that's why I am tempted to say that Ghost in the Machine is my favorite Police album, because I listen to side one all the time, and side two is still fantastic. The only reason I don't listen to it enough is because I keep putting side one on repeat. But it is really great. So, check this one out. Okay, and the last album that we have for now is Synchronicity. Synchronicity. And for those of you who saw earlier, the patch that I have is based on this album cover with the color scheme. The back of the album is pretty much the same, but the track listing is written in very small letters there. So, this album was inspired by Carl Jung's theory of synchronicity, which is that, if I recall correctly, human beings are sort of connected through some kind of spiritual connection, and ideas can be related through events that are not necessarily causally related, but psychologically, emotionally, or thematically related. Or something like that. So, the track listing for this album. Side 1 contains Synchronicity 1, Walking in Your Footsteps, Oh My God, Mother, Miss Gradenko, and Synchronicity 2. Side 2 contains Every Breath You Take, King of Pain, Wrapped Around Your Finger, and Tea in the Sahara. Now, the CD and cassette version of Synchronicity also contains the song Murder by the Numbers, which would be the last song. Unfortunately, the vinyl version does not have it. Now, I'm not too disappointed because Murder by the Numbers is not my favorite Police song, and I don't think it's one of their best, but I still do think it is a good song. And in terms of flow and continuity, I think that it is a much better final song than Tea in the Sahara, which, again, not a bad song, but it just sort of fades. Doesn't really end that well. Murder by the Numbers has a bit more of a kick to end the album. So, side 1 is a little messy, and it's the reason why I have a hard time believing people when they say that Synchronicity is the best album by the Police. The songs Synchronicity 1 and 2 are great. In fact, Synchronicity 2 is one of the most unique Police songs for its guitar tone and sound, and it's fantastic. I listen to that one all the time. The problem with this is that at this point the band were starting to get very... Sorry about that. That was my phone. Note to self, make sure nobody messages you at 2 a.m. Well, I was hoping to do this all in one take, but it's a funny blooper, I guess. Maybe I'll mute the audio for that part. Where were we? I'm going to be very casual about this, though. So, the songs Walking in Your Footsteps and Oh My God are okay. And Mother and Miss Grodenko are pretty bad. So, the band was starting to get very antagonistic with each other at this time. There was a lot of inner turmoil. So, Mother and Miss Grodenko were written and performed mostly by Andy Summers and Stuart Copeland each, which is why they're not as good. Sting can be quite egotistical, but I think he kind of deserves it. He is definitely a better songwriter than Andy Summers or Stuart Copeland if we were judging them by these tracks alone. I wish they had not put them on the album. We could have had more Room for Murder by the Numbers then. But even though side 1 is flawed, thankfully side 2 is fantastic. I almost feel like it's the opposite to side 1 of Ghost in the Machine. They're both very synth-heavy albums. Only in this one, it's side 2 that's perfect because it has Every Breath You Take, which is probably the biggest Police song of all time. Let's be honest, if you don't know who the Police are, you've still heard that song. Then King of Pain and Wrapped Around Your Finger are really great ones as well. I don't think those are as well known as their other songs, but they should be, because they're great. And Tea in the Sahara, as I mentioned, is still a really good song. It's just a very soft ballad that almost feels like it should be followed by something else, but it isn't. And that is Synchronicity. So I'll open this one up. And hopefully nobody else will text me. It's a nice photo of the band there. And this actually has the lyrics printed. I didn't realize this is the only Police album that has that. But, yeah, you can see some of the lyrics there. Ta-da! And the album itself. It's pretty nice. It has the nice Synchronicity colors on it. Now, actually, there's an interesting thing about this, and I don't know if I can necessarily show it on video. It's very hard to achieve, but you might be able to see it there. But if you just look at it from this angle, the vinyl appears like it's black. But if you sort of slightly hold it up to the light there, you'll see that it's actually purple, and it's slightly translucent. You can see that effect there. Yeah. I thought that was cool. This is what happens when you're a music nerd. I do like to look up random facts about every album you own. So, the choice between my least favorite Police album, between Synchronicity and Ricochet de Blanc, is difficult because I listen to Synchronicity a lot, but I know there are songs I don't like, and I don't listen to Ricochet de Blanc nearly enough, but I can't remember a song that I didn't like as much as Mother or Miss Grodenko. And Police. So, have all of them right here. Ta-da. So, overall, I would say the Police are easily one of my favorite bands because I like their new wave style a lot. And it's not actual reggae, but the reggae-inspired guitar riffs go very well with Stuart Copeland's drumming. And I like that they can focus on a lot of more interesting topics in their lyrics. I know there are a lot of haters out there. I do remember this one time that someone actually questioned as to why I was wearing a vest with a patch by the Police on it, because they're not, a metal band. But I don't care. I'm going to listen to what I want, and I think the Police are fantastic. So, hopefully you enjoyed this video. I will definitely try to make more discography-related videos in the future. I don't own every one of my favorite band's entire discography because that would be very expensive, but I'll see what I can do. Until then, thank you for tuning in for this episode of the ASMR Review Show. I'm your host, Cole. Have a good night.